Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I will finally be breaking down the latest monthly report for the Persistent Universe. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. And before we begin, for those interested in the TOBII Tracker 5, which is what I use for head tracking, it is currently 15% off until the 1st of April, so it is a great opportunity to take advantage of that deal, as you do not need to pay full price for it. If you are planning to pick one up, please do consider using the link in the description below, as this will provide me with a direct financial kickback, helping to support what I do at no extra cost to you. So thank you so much in advance if you do so. Right, let us start off with the AI features team. It says they are continuing to develop features for a key initiative, the first iteration of which is planned for Alpha 3.2.3, with further details revealed in the run-up to release. Very sneaky, a great way to start the monthly report, I guess. I'm not sure what this could be. Maybe it's to do with getting the replication layer in and having the NPCs updated, or more refined behaviors. We will have to wait and see. Next up, we have the Weapon Art team, who worked through a host of 3.2.3 updates, much of which we saw on Inside Star Citizen last week. For the core gameplay pillar team, they continued to refine the backpack reloading, plus the ongoing scope update, with the iron sights now correctly folding down when sights are attached. I do wonder if the player's hands will be reaching out and physically attaching or detaching all of the weapon items for 3.2.3. I know that's something they want. It could potentially be coming later on with the physical interactions, as we only saw a very unpolished suppressor attachment during Inside Star Citizen when showing off the player interaction update. So it's not 100% clear yet whether all attachments will have this. I'm guessing it won't be, but hopefully it won't be too long until it is. Now, also for scopes, support for blur on the outside of the sight is currently underway, plus the team enabled the weapon customization UI to look holographic ahead of a UI styling pass. So nice to hear that they're blurring the outside of scopes, kind of as a stopgap until they get picture-in-picture or whatever they can use for a more true scope feel. For the item wear and misfire, further work was completed on the accumulator system, plus additional tools were implemented to make working and testing the system easier. Now, it's going to add so much more diversity and a sense of ownership to our weapons when this system rolls out more thoroughly, as we will want to maintain our weapons and clean them to ensure that they work as well as possible and don't misfire, which will certainly help to create more of an attachment for items. I know many might not like this idea, but it is something that I have been looking forwards to. Now, for the player interaction system, the team spent a lot of time bug fixing and polishing, plus adding the in-game option to hide the F prompt, as well as adding a new control hint for when an off-screen interaction is available. Very happy to hear about this option to remove the F from the UI. Even though it's far cleaner UI for 3.23, I personally don't want any UI anywhere on anything, so hopefully we can actually remove quite a bit more of it and only use contextual UI via the helmets or the lens. We will see. Now, players will also auto-crouch if looting items below them, plus support was added to automatically open the inventory UI instead of the loot screen if a lootable container is above a certain capacity. They are also replacing the legacy quick buy UI to be used when renting vehicles during events, plus work continued on the freight elevator kiosk UI backend. So this new UI for shopping, it looks to be kind of a more cleaner, more visually understandable UI that will hover or pop up when you click on an item that you're interested in, and I guess the same will go for renting vehicles as well. Now, for the visor and lens HUD rework, progress continued on various UI elements, including priority notifications, mission objectives, and chat. Really hope we get the option to take off the lens at some point, go completely UI free, but in regards to the HUD rework, getting all these elements more cleaner and less obtrusive is going to be a nice addition for 3.2.3. Now, for EVA, they continued to implement and improve networking support and ensured that players' arms and held items don't clip into the torso when traveling or rotating. And I'm very happy that they're cleaning this up, as it did look a little odd on Inside Star Citizen. Now, for master modes, tuning of the archetypes continued, so each ship archetype, and so far they are around 90% complete with the initial conversion. with further tuning passes and refinement to be done before release, and then more done after release as well for each ship individually. Things are really going to change big time in all areas, especially the ships. Now, work continued on jump points, as we have heard, with the ongoing tech preview testing. A new UI was added to give players information on whether their ships are capable of completing a jump, plus successful tests were completed. And I'm sure we have all been reading about the Evocati testing jump points. We should be seeing the tech preview channel with not jump points but server meshing tests open up to more backers, hopefully for this weekend. It should be Friday today as this video goes out, if all has gone to plan. This weekend they are testing server meshing in Stanton with multiple configurations, more player counts, but opening it to players other than Evocati as well. So great news there. Now, for the resource network and engineering systems, heat gameplay was added, which enables items to generate heat based on their usage. Items will require coolant if necessary and will overheat and decrease in functionality if not addressed. Very cool hearing this stuff. Also, life support, they say, is fully integrated into the resource network, with the life support generator and tank now functional, and improved debugging tools were added for the room system to help better understand how the resource network and life support interoperate. So this is going to be a lot of fun, monitoring and dealing with systems like heat, coolant, oxygen, temperature, and much more, watching the systems as you travel around, having full control over them, and eventually all of the components as well. Ships are going to feel like actual ships, and alongside master modes, they will have all of their own personalities, plus each ship will be unique, even if they are the same ship, because we will be all tuning them differently, swapping out components differently to suit all of our needs. Cannot wait. Now, for radar and scanning, an important refactor was completed to reduce the number of radar components on vehicles and share data between operator seats. And now vehicles can share a single radar across all operators on board, so the pilot or radar operator can focus on collecting results that can then be shared to all the turrets, for example, rather than each turret needing to scan for themselves. Now, it says although there will be some cases for vehicles to have multiple radars, but in time the team will merge the majority into a single shared unit that will improve performance and gameplay. Now, this is great news, and it really goes to show that there will be more things for players to do on board of ships than just fly or shoot, like being a dedicated radar operator, allocating targets to each crew member, and eventually, if you have a fleet of ships, being able to share that information between them all. This is leading into the command station controlling large fleet battles. Also, I do suspect we won't potentially see any major changes to the ship's radars or scanners until the resource network is implemented, as components and managing your ship systems will be one of the main determining factors as to what signals you put out. So it won't be very accurate until then anyway. Now, elevator support was also done for the upcoming instanced hangars and supported quantum travel and markers, working alongside server meshing for when transitioning from one solar system to the next. For Arena Commander, engineering work concluded on streaming, which allows basically the PU locations to come into Arena Commander with ease, which is great as it means any location in the verse can be a map for any Arena Commander mode, and they can do it quickly. Custom lobby engineering work is now nearing completion, and work began on some basic custom settings like score limit, time limit, and match cycle options. Several internal tests were conducted on engineering experimental modes. After an update to the back-end matchmaker, new loadouts were created too, with all of the equipment engineers would need for the mode, which is currently getting prepared for a go, no-go meeting for 323. This is going to be so much fun. A lot of chaos, I'm sure, but I'm really looking forward to testing this out with other players and just seeing how it all works. Now, work continued on the underlying mission system refactor ahead of server meshing, and further progress was made on the mission perks and reward system as well. Looking forwards to these reputation rewards, as this will be certainly encouraging to grind for more rewards, getting better rewards other than just Alpha UEC, but also nice to see this refactor going on for server meshing, making sure that missions will transition from server to server. Now, an update for reputation-based hostility was done to ensure that if someone is being attacked, any nearby ally or security faction member will come to their defense, which also means that factions with negative rep, or that you get negative rep with, will attack the player or not intervene and help. Now, this is one of the major steps making its way into place for the Stanton system and making the Stanton system safer for non-criminal players. Having a security force that can come to your aid will make it more challenging and difficult for pirates, but at the same time, if you piss off a gang in-game or an organization, they may shoot at you. And I also hope that they will tie this into actually being seen doing something and having your crimes reported via the comms, rather than you shooting a Ninetales in the middle of nowhere and then all of a sudden all the Ninetales know that you killed one of their own. Now, the contracts manager was converted to building blocks in prep for the new Mobiglass, with further polish and user experience improvements currently underway in collaboration with the UI team. It looks as though there is a good chunk of the new UI coming for 3.2.3, with, I guess, the rest of it coming later on, so we'll see what comes in with this initial patch. And as we've heard, they'll just keep rolling out all of this Squadron 42 stuff as and when it's ready. Now, for persistent and instanced hangars, work began on the instanced interior system, which manages which hangar instances exist, need to be created, and which physical gateways are used to transition between the instance and the rest of the game world. And this stuff we will hopefully have already heard more about on Inside Star Citizen this week. That is going to be one of the best new additions for 3.2.3. The team also implemented the initial version of automated cargo loading and unloading, including displaying information on the ASOP terminals that the ship is currently unavailable for retrieval due to this process. So I'm sure many of you will be relieved to hear about this auto-loading and unloading process, especially when it comes to larger ships. Now, progress was also made on the freight elevator and loading platform occlusion logic, which determines where items can be placed on the elevator or platform, plus support was given to the location stream for marking up hangars with loading platforms and freight elevators. Again, another exciting 3.2.3 feature with so many gameplay implications and use cases. Now, finally, for the core gameplay pillar team, they worked on various debug tools to aid in testing and debugging the various systems that drive instanced hangars, the warehouse system, and loading platforms. So, moving on to the economy team, they made changes to bring salvage more in line with other persistent universe careers and are currently rebalancing commodities to improve the cargo career experience. But in regards to salvage, it'll be interesting to see what the values are now, and of course, as the economy further develops, prices and values will fluctuate from location to location instead of being static. So, a lot of changes coming in there, and it'll be great to see the economy further flesh out. The team also provided support for the Xenothreat Global event, as well as looked at FPS ammo prices. So that's good, bringing ammo values in line with everything as well. It is a long ongoing task for this team. Now, for the graphics, visual effects programming and planet tech team, they progressed on some longer term tasks like the unification of gas cloud and planet cloud upscaling. Hopefully this means we can see much better performance even when the clouds are maxed out. The gas cloud occlusion effect is also nearing completion, which will increase the detail level of all gas clouds. Plus, they are also resolving a long-standing issue that caused a harsh line to appear when 600 meters from where the gas cloud blends with the near fog system. If that is the line that I'm thinking of as you transition through atmosphere, it'll be so nice to see that line gone because it is so immersion breaking. Now, for the global illumination team, they continue to work on a system to approximate complex materials within a ray-traced view of the world, plus began looking into performance improvements before tackling some of the more complex issues like moving objects and zones. It is going to look so beautiful with global illumination, and I think there are potential reports of it being implemented in 3.23's Evocati builds. Cannot confirm that, but sounds interesting. I am definitely going to need to upgrade my rig when it comes to ray tracing. Now, for the Vulkan API, the team are pushing hard towards release, working through various performance issues, as well as working on a shader caching mechanism to compile shaders while the game is loading to avoid any hitches. Plus, considering whether this process can later run in the patcher to further reduce the chance of compiling when the game starts. And although this is progressing, it might not be fully ready for the initial public release. So I really feel like they are trying to get the Vulkan API in for 3.23, and as it sounds here, it certainly sounds possible. Which, as we have heard, the Vulkan API should allow for so much more performance improvements, not to mention everything else that it can allow, like ray tracing and eventually virtual reality. Now, the devs from the Water Strike team closed out the issues that came up during their final review, alongside several new features, including signed distance field interaction for accurate collisions when vehicles hit water, and an improved water intersection shader as well. Amazing stuff is going on with water, and I've also heard reports that the new water updates are in the latest 3.23 Evocati build as well, and have, or appear to have, zero impact on performance, which is just amazing to hear. It is going to be so nice checking out these bodies of water on all scales, from puddles to oceans, and seeing how they physically interact with the game world. Now, next up, we have the Planet Tech team, who began improving the editor workflow for creating planets and planning out the next version of Planet Tech, being Planet Tech version 5, which will cover a variety of areas, but its primary goals are to make creating planets quicker and easier, and to try and achieve more diversity, density, and consistency in quality across whole planetary surfaces. Now, this is going to be one of the aspects that really allows the planets in StarCitizen to be generated much quicker, which is going to be imperative, moving beyond Pyro and Nyx and getting many new systems out in a timely manner, especially as they approach version 1.0. Finally, it says the rest of the graphics team focused on improving their upscaling tech ahead of its public release, which we know is coming in 3.23, and this involved finalizing a new mesh format that gives major performance improvements. And I'm sure we can all agree that seeing major performance improvements is what we all want, but it will be hardware specific based on your rig. Now, for the lighting team, they continued supporting various upcoming PU initiatives, including the distribution centers, instanced hangars, freight elevators, and the new character customizer. Again, all of which 3.23. Moving on to the EU locations team, for the landing zone team, they worked to finalize the working prototype for cargo and the new hangar experience. Plus, final art and LODs are now nearing completion on all of the modifications to hangars necessary for this new feature. The Sandbox 2 team worked towards closing out the distribution centers, with art now finalized and optimized, while level design added the final tweaks to make sure the various areas can support all the gameplay the mission team need. And I think right now, distribution centers are probably the feature that's most on my mind, as it's not just an impressive, huge point of interest, it also supports a ton of gameplay, and each one offering a range of gameplay types. And for me, I'm most excited to see what these internal missions are like, also helping players load and unload their ships, for a fee of course, but also the cargo missions and reputation that can be gained. So much content in just one of these distribution centers, let alone all 13 of them. Now, for the mission design team, they continue to work on a chain that comprises various mission types that scale in difficulty. And this sounds like this dynamic mission system that they have spoken about in the past, where you could be doing a particular mission, even a basic drop-off mission, and then another mission of a different type might pop up once you've completed that, all while en route, automatically giving you the option if you want to progress and continue on. Now, I'm sure it's evolved since they last spoke about it, so hopefully they will tell us more soon. Design for new missions is currently being signed off on, while content and tech requirements are underway for future hauling content. And by future hauling content, I presume they are referring to post 3.23, not its initial release, as we are already aware that there are a lot of hauling missions coming in with 3.23 or cargo missions. This sounds like they're saying for the future beyond that. Now, finally for the team, development of Xenothreat 1.2 continues with changes to gameplay and the implementation of freight elevators, while the Blockade Runner event received polish and the implementation of freight elevators as well. So moving on to the narrative team, they were heavily focused on Alpha 3.23 with many new gameplay features having corresponding missions, so they have been working closely with the design team to develop the narrative that players will experience. The team also worked on a variety of Pyro-based missions to help expand the gameplay at various locations. Pyro is going to be a stark contrast to Stanton. It was pretty eye-opening when I tried it out. That place is going to be lawless, which should hopefully mean Stanton will be far less lawless than it is now. Now, narrative also progressed on future story missions, which will be more involved than typical missions, featuring things like bespoke dialogue and custom logic, with the hope being that these mission types will serve to build out the story of the wider universe and work alongside the more traditional systemic missions. So it's going to be really interesting seeing more lore involved in missions and learning more about the universe itself, all the people of the universe and the history of the universe in a mission format. And again, nice to see more dedicated mission content expanding, even though me personally, I am more focused on player-generated content, but having these handcrafted missions will be definitely fun and interesting. Finally, for the team, they continued to develop the tourist behaviour that will bring new life to Star Citizen's large in-world events. Next up, we have the R&D team, who have continued working on the temporal render mode. Temporal filtering of transmittance was improved to avoid glowing thin silhouettes around objects in foregrounds with clouds and the sun behind them, while various improvements were made to preserve history details for as long as possible, and to quickly converge to a full resolution image in case history needs to be rejected. And again, I think we're seeing more of these improvements to clouds in 3.2.3, as that was just newly added to the roadmap, so a lot of improvements coming there. Now, for the tech art and tech animation teams, they focused on refining head assets and cleaning up technical debt around their implementation, which comes as a precursor to polishing head assets and refining eye alignment in the editor to ensure that the characters look as good as possible. I am so thrilled with how this new character customizer has turned out. The characters do look phenomenal, and it looks like we will be able to not just look completely different to one another, but actually recognize each other through face alone. Not to mention, all NPCs will be using these new faces as well, so all characters in 3.2.3 will just look so much better. Also for the team, a large contingent of the department is working on asset setup for lockers, which will be placed throughout the verse to allow players and NPCs to change their apparel to something more appropriate to their current priorities. It's going to be interesting to see what use cases this has for NPCs. For players, it's pretty obvious, being able to swap out whenever we want, but having a spot where NPCs can change their clothes, not so obvious. So I would love to see this in action and where they plan to use it. Finally, for the team, they kicked off initiatives to ensure the health of the build remains stable and triage technical debt that's built up over the course of the project. So glad to hear that. Now, finally, we have the visual effects team, who continued working on several upcoming locations, including freight elevators and distribution centers. They also investigated an issue with planetary ground storms, where fog was coming in too thick when light winds arrived, and although they say it was difficult to balance, it will be easier for players to see where they are going if a storm is relatively mild. So there you have it, that was the latest Persistent Universe Monthly Report. So much is going on, and it seems the vast majority of it is coming in with 3.2.3, even a few potential ones that have yet to be announced. Apologies this video has taken so long to get out, but with that said, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Come and hang out over at twitch.tv/SuperMacBrother. You are all more than welcome over there. The link is below. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a major thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for making these videos possible. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.